Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McKusick, and we're back for part 2 of the discussion of the outside linebackers with our good friend Dev Panchwa. Dev, how you doing?
I am excellent. This is one of my favorite topics. Very passionate about it, so I'm excited to keep talking about it.
All right, great. We looked at a lot of things in part 1. We talked a little bit about Odafe Oweh and what happened with him. Is it possible he might be back? We talked a lot about Tavius Robinson and his usage. A lot of the overwork at the unit, some specialization of Kyle Van Noy, who was an extreme pass rush effort. If you like good discussion about football, I think you will not be disappointed ever with Dev being on one side of that conversation. So I really appreciate you making time for this today, Dev.
Oh, thank you. No, and I appreciate that this is the topic that landed my way because there's a lot to dissect. I think it's critical to the team for multiple seasons and then going forward with this new staff, and the importance of it is significant.
Probably the most interesting player, and certainly one of the ones the Ravens are banking on, is Mike Green. He was forced into a very heavy workload in his first year. We talked about this a little bit in part 1, but I think we're allowed a little bit of overlap and review of the previous show. You can always skip the review if you want, but Mike really, I expected him to come here with a situational pass rushing role, and he ends up being really more of a two down run defender who's on the field on third down, some, but not all snaps.
That is not what I had on my bingo card to start the season at all. I think it was in the beginning, I think the first couple of games, and he started playing right away. But I think that is where I had him pegged as a third downs, rush the passer, just Peter Bulwer style, like just go get the passer. Like that is his profile. The edge, and then playing on first and second down out of necessity. But the thing is, Ken, I think I was talking to you about it offline, is that he has ability to play the run. There were enough plays in college and enough snaps where you saw it. He's physical at the point. He takes on blocks. He's a violent player in general. His hand usage, his moves. So I wasn't worried about him not being a 3-down player. I actually think that was the cool part, is like if you looked at his profile, he could be that. And it's kind of like, I don't want to make a comparison to Suggs. I'm not doing that, but more like when Suggs came on, a lot of the thought was he is going to morph into that run defender, and they ended up becoming, I think he was a Hall of Fame run defender as much as a pass rusher. So,
oh yeah, very much so. Yeah. Now Suggs, let's use him as the archetype here, because I think he's the path I would have loved Green to follow. He played 39% of the snaps as a rookie and got 12 sacks. I mean, he was used in a situational role.
Yeah.
In that first year. Mike Green, I don't know what percentage he played actually for the year. I don't have it right in front of me, but I mean, it was well over 50% of the snaps he played. And, he's forced into much more playing time, a 1.6 to 1 pass to run ratio, which is very low. Ojabo was lower, but none of the other outside linebackers were. They were all significantly higher, including, for instance, Van Noy was at 3.7 to 1. Oweh was 4.0 to 1 in his time with the team. So Mike was forced into a lot of early down playing time. I mean, it's the path has been very different. And I also look at Suggs. He only had a single jump to make. He was the most prolific sacker in NCAA history at the time. I don't know if it's been passed since, but he had 24 sacks at Arizona State in his final season. And then he was very high on the Ravens board, top 10 pick, came to the Ravens and was immediately successful in a pure pass rush role. Green, tremendous success, but it was at Marshall, so it's outside of the Power 5. Clearly, he's not at the same level. Very high close rate. We talked about that being a problem for Oweh from 24 to 25. Is a high close rate is not ideal. You're probably not going to be able to duplicate a high close rate from year to year. And that's why a guy like the Atlanta guy, Pierce, who had a terrific rookie year. He might have been the defensive rookie of the year. He was close if he wasn't.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
He had a ton of pressure, and he had a real high pressure rate in college that converted very well. But unfortunately, it didn't work as well for Green. Loved his motor, though, at times. We saw that McCrary-esque motor from him.
You did a great job breaking it all down. There was a lot of I shouldn't say a lot. There, just going back to games, and then you would see the snaps he won when he had his pass rush wins, and those are impressive at times. You could see the talent that everybody was lauding over, and I think he was viewed right behind Abdul Carter, if not in
Mhm.
some cases, some draft folks had him at Abdul Carter's level in terms of just a pass rush prospect. But that was there, I think, on film. Uh, his ability to bend, his ability to win the corner. He had some counter moves. He used his hands well. Refined pass rusher, and refined plan at times. So that was there. It's just there were other times he just would get stuck, and then I think he to your point, he didn't play. He never stopped playing. He never stopped with his motor, but it was just there. Whatever approach he took, just was stalemated, and that was that. So that was the inconsistency. But hey, maybe some of the playing the run and having to come in on early downs, it affected him to be able to rush, and I think there's something to that because that's a lot of responsibility on first and second down. Like you're having to read your keys. There's movement. There's play action. It's not just hey, yeah, and playing the run and like you said, we're just he's flipping his priorities. So it could have affected him. Maybe it wore him down a bit.
So it's two elements to the wearing down part. The first is the mental component of having to learn
Yeah,
how to play the run. And you'd love if he could have just gone into the lab with Chuck Smith and spent the entire year refining his pass rush technique. That would have been wonderful.
yep,
But it did obviously that didn't work out. But the other part is the physical part, and he's playing a lot of consecutive snaps in games, and that's one of the most tiring things to do on a football field. It's why the Ravens have always played rotationally at edge and on the defensive line, is they really don't want to let those guys get tired out. And then you go through a season like this where the Ravens are losing snap count like they did with such an inefficient, low drive success rate to keep means that series by series, they're not getting the same percentage of first downs they have in past Lamar years. Very frustrating from that perspective. So,
yeah.
I think he was really hurt by that on both elements, those both the mental and the physical side. And I hope there's something to be gained from this year. I hope we can look back and say, well, wow, he played this high percentage of snaps. This should work out for him in the future, or this does work out for him in the future some way. But it's not obvious to me that that's the case. It almost seems to me he has to have a second year where he really focuses on the pass rush as opposed to other responsibilities.
Yeah, it's going to come down to how the new staff views his strengths and what they really want to get out of him. He is going to. I'm guessing when personnel comes up in the meetings that DeCosta's having with Minter and and all those things, he has to be one of the players that's brought up as what can we do with him? Like where can this guy's trajectory go?
Mhm.
Because he's got it kind of elements to his game. And what I loved about him is he pretty much put his head down and did everything as a rookie. He worked hard. He was Chuck Smith. We talked about in the first show, but he complimented him a ton in terms of the work ethic. I know character was brought up as a concern with Mike Green. None of that showed up. So I think that's the thing to take out of this. And all those snaps, I do hope those are positives where he learned to play coming right in immediately,
Mhm.
just full load. But now it's like, yeah, maybe we can scale that back for you so you can be more impactful.
Critically important what you just mentioned, that the reason the Ravens got him was because of those concerns in his background. Okay, and the Ravens, to their credit, I think they did their due diligence very thoroughly on Mike Green. There was not a bad word said about the kid this entire season. Not a
Yeah.
bad word said. Not about work ethic. Not about any off field concern. Nothing like that. Nothing I know about anything legally going on behind the scenes with whoever was involved in the thing in college.
Yeah.
But the other thing I really loved about him is he's got this motor that is just it's on display several times per game. Basically, anytime there's an extended play with Mike Green on the field, Mike Green is going to continue to work and work and work and work. And the best one, I think, of the whole season was him running down J.J. McCarthy on that 4th and 4 play that ended it was the final play for Minnesota where they still had a chance to be in the ball game. And it took 10 seconds for him to deliver that quarterback hit, which is just absurd. But McCarthy eventually, knew it was coming. It had to throw the ball to the left side and was off target. And was the play of the season for Mike Green, I think.
Yeah, I remember that play. And I think the Bears game was a good game for him too. He made a few key plays, pressure wise. I think, was it the Bears game where he had like 3 hits that influenced? Oh, I'm getting it mixed up. I'm getting Green mixed up with Draymond Jones. But Green also had a good game in the he had a good game in the Bears game. I didn't mix that part up, but there was enough there for me to feel like, because I was very high on Mike Green coming into the season, like I thought he could be a rookie of the year type player. That's how much I really loved his talent and all the things he brought to the table. I'm still hopeful for that. I think breakout is still doable. It's just now, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this staff gets with him and kind of just, again, isolates him in a way that he can be the playmaker and not necessarily have to do all that dirty work. And maybe that's the formula, right? I think there's a lot to like about him, and I think he's going to prosper. I think and mentality-wise, work ethic looks like it's all there too. That's a big key to all of this.
One way that you can judge whether a team has a chance to elevate their game from one season to the next is look at all the younger players that they have and who has a chance still to build on their last season and make it be something special. And a lot of older players, the only surprise you're going to get from an older player is, generally speaking, a decline, an injury that ends in significant decline in play. But with younger players, it's still possible for breakout. And I look at this 2026 team, and there are a few players. Starks, I didn't like the pick. I've been on record extensively about that, and I go against every national pundit apparently who liked Starks over Emanwari. I thought the choice was very clear that Emanwari was the better player, but I thought he's a second round value. He's just not a first round value. Green was the first round value they got in the second round. So it's the problem is it's not a 2 wrongs make a right situation where they wouldn't have gotten, they could have still taken Emanwari and gotten Green as well and been much better off than they are right now. But Starks is a player. He's one of the several players on the Ravens who could take a big step forward. Green is certainly one. You mentioned him being the guy, but I mean, he not only is he one of the guys, I mean, he's, in a way, he's the guy they need to talk about at outside linebacker and craft his role first and build the rest of the unit around him, because, in addition to the guy they draft, I mean, will be the most important 2 players. Draymond, and Tavius, they're fairly versatile players. They can help you a lot of ways. Draymond, if he's re-signed, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I am with you because, and then just on that same wavelength of Teddy Buchanan is healthy, but like there is a lot of potential also with Minter's ability to elevate performances, right? Then McDonald had the same trait. You put that together, and I can see the younger players on the team that the Ravens have that are talented, just raising their game. But Green, I mean, the upside is tremendous if they can get him to that point. And I don't want to seem like I can't stand Oweh. Might come across a little bit like that in these recordings, but I just didn't see that same mentality or like that same that same drive that I'm seeing again. It's only rookie year, but Green's, like you just described it, with the motor and the constant just willingness to work hard. If you match that up with talent, normally those players do well in the NFL. So and good coaching.
All right, let's move on and talk about Draymond Jones a little bit. He's acquired prior to Week 10. So he's one of the few players in the entire NFL played 18 games this season, 18 regular season games. And one of the Ravens' real pass rush weapons down the stretch, was a good finisher, lots of quarterback hits, 2.5 sacks, I believe, at the end, which meant he didn't trigger. The 2 sacks he was over, But since the Ravens didn't make the playoffs, they don't end up trading a 4th round pick to him for Tennessee. To Tennessee, it's a 5th round pick that Tennessee now gets.
Yeah, I loved Draymond Jones's addition to this team. Like I think every week I had a breakdown of his plays, and just highlighted what he was doing. I was a big fan. I thought he was exactly what they needed. I love the Bengals game, right, where he was trash talking and he had that crying.
I love that too.
Imitating on the sideline to Burrow, and he brought that flair we've been accustomed to, right, with the Ravens defenses in the past. But the things he did, I mean, we talked about closing on the quarterback, kind of like Cobra-like, like just would really suffocate and not make it easy for the quarterback to slip out. And he was really good on those as the looper. He was really good coming in on stunts and working off the pick, and also just his mix between power. A lot of his power game was speed to power.
Mm-hmm.
This really was good. He isn't a star. He's not. I mean, he's not going to be that top tier guy, but even if he's tier 2. And in a world where we talked up Mike Green just now, he can raise maybe to close to tier 1, and you have Travis Jones, and you draft someone. Yeah, I could see that really being a good combination. But I thought that was a success. He was a success, and he was asked to do a lot, and at times, he was like the featured guy when he really shouldn't be. So he was good and really good to me for what he was asked to do. And I thought and it was disappointing. There was times in certain games where I thought he might be like a week-to-week guy, Ken, and maybe I had my expectations way too high. But he had a great season for his career. Like that was a banner season for him between Tennessee and Baltimore.
Yeah, he certainly did. Good record as a tackler, career. Played 65% of the snaps in his 9 weeks with the Ravens. And unlike Green, who probably played a similar percentage of snaps, I didn't feel like Draymond Jones was overworked in his time with the Ravens. At least I don't think it showed up in his play in any way.
I agree. His energy, his burst, his impact was consistent. And that could also just come with the simple fact that he's been used to that for a long time now. And what I liked about him, even when they got him, is that he had transitioned from defensive tackle in Denver to edge throughout his career. Right? It was a evolution, but if going back to Zadarius Smith and going back to Pernell McPhee and guys like that arch type and that type of player really does well in this defense. Now, I hope they kind of reprise that with Minter. I think they would, because if you look at the way he used the line in the backers in LA, they did a lot with their line games and then having free rushers and then creating lanes through that. So I think there is that opportunity, whether it's him or someone else. But yeah, I thought he was consistent and versatile and brought a lot of things to the table.
Mm-hmm. Knocked the quarterback down 14 times on the season. Didn't have a roughing the passer, which I thought was a big deal. There's only 3 penalties were either DOF or encroachment. So that's good when your edge players are not picking up personal fouls, are not going illegally to the face and things like that. Will give away first downs automatically. They just give away occasionally a first down with a 5-yard penalty as well. But it's a 44% close rate. 20 pressures and 14 sacks and quarterback hit contributions. I'm using the PFF numbers there. I'm sorry, it's 18 other pressures. So it's 44%. It's a good close rate. It may not be repeatable, but the pressure rate was high enough that I'm not tremendously worried about that. But I do worry about one thing you said earlier, is that I don't want to pretend like he's an A player with an A contract. He's got to be a B player with a B contract for it to be of value to the Ravens.
I agree. So I think that question's come my way. How much would you pay Jones? And I'm comfortable with below $15 million a year. So what does that come? Is that feasible? Number one, because he did have a breakout season. I think he's 28, right? So it's just I'm good with that, and like you said, I'm good with it being B-level money. But then if you are paying him, you can't pay someone else. I would have to see who else is out there. Getting back to almost um, in my head, maybe I'm being way too optimistic. Like the perfect scenario would be like a Trevor Price signing.
Right.
No, Trevor Price, not the same player, right? But like they dip into the free agency pool a little bit harder than they have before, because I do think they need a veteran that you can count on. You can't put so much on Mike Green's development, and you can't put so much on a rookie that you're going to draft to turn the whole thing around. I think so. Yeah, between Jones, maybe you don't pay Jones and you pay less to just a pass rush specialist than you pay more to like another player. I think that's about right where I would be comfortable with it, and I do want him back. I'm hedging. I want him back, but for for these concessions, like.
Right.
That's
I'm with you entirely. And I think my number in Jones is probably around 12 million per year. If he was 3 for 36, I'd be okay with that. If he's 3 for 33, I'd be even better with that. I think once you get up into Travis Jones money or a little bit higher, then I'm not as excited about the contract, obviously, for a lot of reasons. I think I probably have to pass at some point. One of them is that the Ravens have just had outstanding success going to the bargain bin and finding guys. They have an incredible record of doing it with Clowney and Van Noy himself. They've got other players like Justin Houston, Jason Pierre-Paul played very well here for a very limited role, which didn't even really have tremendous like pass rush component to it. He played well in a period of time. So I've been very happy with the guys they've been able to get, for basically nothing.
Yeah, it's been a good run for sure. It's probably unprecedented. I don't know. I think Tampa Bay had some of that magic too. Most recently, what is it, Light, the GM in Tampa Bay? He's done a good job there. But I like it. I do feel like they are at the point now that they need a tier one kind of player.
Yeah.
Even if Matabika is back, you hope. I mean, that's like the ultimate situation, right? Like that it's hard to accomplish that with roster building and then have good players everywhere else. But I think if they can, but the ideal is a draft pick, sorry, that you're not spending the money on and you take, and then kind of like an Eagles situation. But that kind of makes it interesting with the Draymond Jones part of it, right? Like, do you give him the money for a couple seasons, or do you just at that point go all in, go further in on a better player, or scale back and do what you said? I don't know. There's a couple ways to go about it. Like, and you can I could be persuaded. But either way, they do have to. It has to be more from a personnel perspective. But now they have a coach that also, you could make the argument, can get the pass rush could be better in his hands in critical moments than it has ever been. A lot to chew on, and I threw out like 10 different things. But,
so with regard to the coaching, I'm not going to over expect from even Minter on this, who's obviously had some really good success improving that Los Angeles defense, but I'm not going to over expect on him. The Ravens have an unbelievable history of great defensive coordinators. Zach Orr is probably now going to go down as the weakest of the group, even though it's largely because of where the bar was set. Madison was probably the weakest guy before him, and he had remarkable success when he was here. I mean, and all of them had their own stamp. They did different things, and I expect Minter to do the same thing. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to put the expectations through the roof that he can bring this pass rush back to where it was in 23, for example, just based on his own swagger and good looks. I think he's got to have actual talent infused into the group. But he could unlock some players, and he could unlock Mike Green. I think that would be that'd be very exciting.
Just to wrap on that, I think you're right. And maybe it's unfair looking at what he did with the Chargers group, which was a fairly average collection of talent, and just think that he's going to work that same magic again. But yeah, it is the first year, and he's the head coach, so there's a lot to go on. There's a lot he's going to have on his plate, which gets back to why the talent part they've got to solve.
Yeah.
And even if they add more players, we talked about rotation and lack of depth. Like they have to just build it up. They need a rotation. They need multiple guys.
A couple guys we're going to spend a little bit less time on. David Ojabo, I don't have anything truly positive to say about the guy. It's a lost fourth season. It's really a shame for David, how his career played out here. He probably will never get a big contract in the NFL, and he may only be around the NFL for another couple of years as a, fringe of the roster kind of guy. We'll see how that works out for him.
Yeah, I'm sad about it, Ken. I actually feel like he got a lot of unnecessary heat. Not unnecessary. I understand the heat, but there's times he on the field itself, man, he looked bad, and there's just bad film of him. There's no other way to put it when you talk about him. But the flip side is that this is a player who's gone through 2 massive injuries that totally wiped out his opportunity when he was a top 15 graded player.
Yeah.
When that injury happened. So you just think about it from a personal perspective, a human perspective. I feel bad for him because he was on a track, on one track, then kind of got himself in a good spot, and then unfortunate, it was bad luck again. So I think from a human level, personal level, I feel bad for him. If he sticks around, I think the simple fact that he's willing to play special teams, and he was on the rush teams, had a couple of tackles. He's that type of. It seems like, you could see why the coaches like him. You can see why they want him on the field on that, from that standpoint, right? Like he's going to do that for another team. But that's really all I see, though.
I want to address that specifically because I think this is a problem that Minter, I'll be looking very closely to see if he solves this. Okay. I want the Ravens to get back to special teams players who have a very significant role on either offense or defense. Tylan Wallace, 2024 or 2023. I want to see Albert McClellan, Anthony Levine. I want to see guys who have a role on defense or a role on offense to go along with outstanding special teams performance. That's not what we had with David Ojabo. And David Ojabo was the 5th outside linebacker active for weeks 16 to 18. He had 1, 2, and 2 defensive snaps, respectively, in those 3 weeks. He played only 28 special team snaps in those 3 weeks. And at the same time, the Ravens didn't have a 5th defensive lineman in all of those games. They might have had a 5th defensive lineman in one of those games, but they didn't in all of those games. That's how I want to put it here. I am never okay with that. There's too much injury risk with being a defensive lineman short. It's kind of like being an offensive lineman short in a lot of ways. Hi, folks. The Super Bowl is here, and MyBookie is where you can turn your bets into bankroll. Are you scheduled to go to the Super Bowl party and you don't want to be there? Yeah, I've been to that party too. Managing your portfolio of wagers through the evening can be your ticket through Super Sunday without getting caught up in your brother-in-law's political rhetoric. Whatever your take on the game, MyBookie has both side and prop bets to make your Super Sunday a lot of fun. That's why I use MyBookie. You've probably heard them talked about on Jimmy Kimmel Live for their deep board of prop bets. These bets become some long-lasting memories, including watching Refrigerator Perry score in Super Bowl 20 at 100-1 odds. If there's ever a time to get in, it's right now. One account, one wallet, bet the spread, live bet the second half, hit the casino during commercials. It all lives in one place. Go to mybookie.ag now. Use promo code Ravens and get your first bet covered up to $500. If it doesn't hit, use your bet back bonus token and run it back. Don't just watch the big game, make it pay on MyBookie.
Let me tell you about the online cannabis company that's changing the game, Mood.com. They created an entirely line of functional gummies, 100% federally legal THC blends, discreetly delivered right to your doorstep. And here's the best part. You can get 20% off your first order at Mood.com with the promo code Ravens. Now, I've tried a bunch of their gummies myself. Each one's totally unique. The Sleepy Time gummies knock me out right away. They help me unwind fast, leave me refreshed the next morning. The Epic Euphoria gummies, they're perfect for when your day just isn't going the way you want it to go. What makes Mood special is how they pair the THC with natural herbs and adaptogens. You won't find blends like this at any local shop. They've got gummies designed for focus, relaxation, clarity, even energy, all made from cannabis grown on small, family-owned American farms. No pesticides, no shortcuts, just high-quality weed you can trust. Plus, Mood backs everything with a 100-day satisfaction guarantee. So head on over to mood.com, check out their amazing selection, and don't forget to use the promo code RAVENS at checkout to save 20% off your first order. This episode is sponsored by Kalshi, the largest prediction market in the United States. Kalshi lets you trade on real-world events, peer-to-peer, instead of playing against a sports book. Kalshi is available across the country, including California and Texas, and it's a really fun way to put your predictions to the test. So here's how it works. You buy a yes contract if you think something will happen, or a no contract if you think it won't. So if you've got an opinion this weekend, like will the Seahawks win the big game this year, you can choose yes or no and trade on it. And you're trading with other users similar to buying and selling stocks. You can jump in and out of your position at any time to lock in a profit or cut your losses. Kalshi also offers combo trades where you can connect multiple predictions across different events to increase your potential payout. In short, Kalshi is where you put your money to where your prediction is. So download the Kalshi app and use the promo code SB60. When you deposit $10 and make a trade, you get your $10 back. That's promo code SB60 on Kalshi.
Cannot be short on big bodies. And David Ojabo is just not a physical player. So he's not a guy who I want. There was talk originally about him kicking inside. You see the guy play, there's no way in hell. I mean, there's no way in hell he's going to go and kick inside and play. So I want Minter to solve that particular problem and not have an overvaluation of game day special teams actives. Do more to fit the odd puzzle piece in there on a kick return, for example. You got players. I'll toss a player out there, Brent Urban. Okay, so Brent Urban might be a fifth defensive lineman who replaces a fifth offensive linebacker. He could be a offensive lineman on a punt return team, on a punt team if he needs to be. And he can be a guy you maybe use to cover kicks, and he's in the center of the formation. So he's really just being good about denying space and using his length and size well there. He's never going to be the fastest guy to the ball. And I think that the Harbaugh era, a lot of that was overvalued. There aren't a lot of weaknesses of John Harbaugh as a coach, but that's one I would put in the later years is there was too much specialization on special teams for what has become a reduced importance of special teams over the years. Fewer punts being returned, the kickoff returns are, much lower variation of result now than they were a few years back. I mean, it's just, I didn't like it.
You summed it up really well. I've been thinking the same thing. I am all about that. I want players activated that can impact offense and defense. Peoples was, there's a number of reasons why he wasn't active each week, but I didn't agree with it a lot of the time. One example, right? Like where you are having to deactivate him for a specialist. And there's been a lot of specialists that they've acquired over the last couple seasons that never amounted to what they were billed as or like hyped as. So I'll say this. I don't know if this is a fair, it might be a little bit too of a black and white thing, but look at the Rams. The Rams had the worst special teams in a long time, probably. They got to the NFC Championship game. Now the special teams cost them in that game. I'll say that, but you could argue you don't want to be all the way on that side of it either, but like they deprioritized it and they still accomplished that, end result. So I tend to feel, and I tend to agree, if you can get more out of your core players to play special teams and instead of, 3 or 4 special teamers, like a Brendan Badejo, who actually played quite a bit,
He played a fair amount defensively.
Yeah. So I think that's like, or the ultimate is Corey Graham, who was like a really good player on both sides. And if you can get back to that, I'm all for that.
Right. It's going to be one of the real big questions for Keandre Jackson in particular is, can he become a safety that the Ravens can afford to have on the field in a split field role? If he can do that, and even be a backup in that or be the fifth guy. Okay, so I'm a proponent of having 5 safeties active when you have a number of 4 safety packages, because then that, even with the first injury, it prevents you from being forced into moving Kyle Hamilton to some role where he's filling a need rather than filling the real star role.
I agree with that too. And he's a stud on special teams. So that's an example where can he be like, I don't know, 70-30 or 60-40 or I don't know, whatever percentage you want to use. Or yeah, okay, fine. That guy, he's a playmaker on special teams. So no doubt, like he needs to see he needs to be prioritized that way. But yeah, if he can give you good enough value, like we talk about Ian Badejo, like he had pretty good value as a linebacker because he could drop and he can cover and he could, and like you say, quality backup in case Ray went down or whoever went down. So that's another thing that I don't think was, I think that was under, or maybe you covered it quite a bit, but when the top star players or Hamilton went down and the entire, like we saw that in the final game of the season, like there was just no, like it almost felt like they were disorganized with the substitutions, rotations, and the roles after that. And I feel like that they need to get better with, and I'm hoping they will get better with the almost like intent, like planning ahead for the guys that have to go in and whether they're prepped. I don't know what your thoughts on that. I think you're alluding to that, but it's like part of the
I'm absolutely saying that exactly, because with Keandre Jackson, I never need to see him actually on the field for a defensive snap, as long as I'm confident that he can go in that split field role when he's needed. And at the safety position, honestly, it will be needed over the course of a season. There's too many injuries that occur at safety. It's a position where smaller men have to make tackles, often against people their size. It's a high contact position. We've seen with Hamilton, in terms of the pass rush. He's great with leverage. He's really good at, being able to bull rush even an offensive tackle sometimes with understanding his length and getting into that. But there is a lot of risk involved in the play. And the cornerbacks to a much greater degree get injured, but safeties get injured, a fair amount too. And you got to be ready to have that backup who's not going to mess up what you want to do with Kyle Hamilton.
Yep, well said. I'm with you on all those points.
All right, let's move on. Talk about Adisa Isaac a little bit. After 2 years, he's barely played. He's played 46 snaps in 24, none in 25. The Ravens aren't in that much different a position than they were after 2 seasons with Ojabo. They didn't go into it with open eyes, as we talked about in our first show, is that they really knew they knew Ojabo was a high tier prospect who dropped a lot. And I think we probably don't need to completely say it again, but I think the Ravens really need to reevaluate how they drop an injured player on their boards, even a very talented one.
Yes. And that's definitely the case. Isaac, I feel like there were some issues with him as a prospect apart from that. Couple things. One is it was almost put across by EDC, like as if, he was there and maybe we could have waited, but it was like I forget who they missed, but they missed someone. And it almost, if I'm remembering correctly, the way he described it, it almost sounded like, well, we were thinking about maybe holding off, but Isaac was talented enough and we took him. It was almost like he was just there and they took him kind of explanation. So it never started off as like, oh, they really wanted him all the way. But I know they liked him. And then if you look at, I think he fits in that bucket of a project more so than anything else, because there was potential. So when he played, which was very limited snaps, he did show some good things. I thought he was good with taking on blocks, disengaging. So physically, I think he had some physicality to his game. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, going back, that could have been the guard pick where they were like, really, they needed a guard. They didn't take the guard, and then they took Isaac, and all those guards went right before and they had a run. So I think that's what it was, and it's just kind of, that doesn't help.
I'm trying to think of who that would have been, because it had to be between 93 and 112. where they took Tez Walker, right? And the guys that went on the offensive line in there were Layden Robinson, who's already out of the league, who went to New England. He is the only offensive lineman went between those two picks. And it might have been a defensive lineman. There's a lot of defensive linemen who went in there.
Okay,
McKinley
so that,
Jackson,
yeah, I could have it mixed up with offensive line. I thought there was a run of linemen maybe ahead in that round, but I know defensive line as well. There was a good amount of depth there, and you never, again, like you said, that the player you just named is out of the league, so that this is all subject to the situation. You could have gotten it wrong anyway.
Right.
But it's kind of like what we talked about with the previous topic when you're talking about inactives and actives. Like at that point, if you have a position of need, I would much rather they take that pick there, in the sense that in this case he seemed like a reach, and he's a player that needed time to develop. I didn't think it really warranted a third round pick.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, the Coach Evans was on the draft pod when Ojabo was selected, and we gone around the panel to talk about who's the guy you want to have there. He was very high on George Pickens. He really wanted George Pickens taken there. Now George Pickens comes with a whole nother set of headaches, but there's no denying he would have been a much better pick there.
No doubt. And I know that's always been the comparison, those two. It's funny because I believe if the Ravens kind of revisited a similar situation with Mike Green this time, and they said, you know what, we're going to pull the trigger. So it's possible that they looked at the Pickens and Ojabo pick and said, and I'm just theorizing, I don't have any information, but maybe that's where they made the correction. But Isaac, it's too bad. He does have talent. I don't think it's not that he doesn't have talent, but I think this is kind of a lost cause. I'd be surprised if, other than a depth backup situation where, again, the new staff looks at it and they're like, yeah, let's let him get another shot in training camp. Let's see what he does, and he might surprise some people.
Well, I mean, he'll be around. He's still on his rookie deal, so there's no reason to cut him at this point, and so hopefully he's healthy. Carl Lawson played 26 snaps for the Ravens in one game. I don't think there's anything at all to say about him. He had to give up his spot. He was cut because they needed a veteran practice squad spot available for him. Enough said on that at all. You only have 4 of those you can have veteran players on.
He has his game overall and his career, I like it. I like the things he brings to the table with his game. But yeah, he's probably at the end of his rope in terms of what he is as an NFL player. No shame on that. He's had a good career. So it's just with as much success as the team has had with the I call them when you go to Best Buy, you have the dollar bins,
bargain bin,
the DVDs, you take them out. I used to love that. They have had their run. This is one where it didn't work.
Yeah. All right, 2026 needs. Let's go forward. Outside linebacker, obviously a fairly significant need in the draft. I would be surprised if they don't get one high. I would encourage people not to go ballistic if they don't take one with either of the first 2 picks, though. This team has a lot of needs. The interior offensive line, the defensive line, whatnot. They might not get one in the first 2 rounds. Corner is a big hidden need for this team. Where are you on that, Dev? Corner relative to these other 3 major position groups?
It's still third. I mean, but you raise a good point, because if you're coming off of Marlon, I don't know what they're doing with him, right? So that's number one. Awuzie, same thing. We don't know what they're going to do with him and his contract. So you're down to Nate Wing. They're good at safety, of course, but there's we didn't talk about safety, but the impacts of the DBs in general, they do need corners no matter what. So one thing is, do they need to tie up the money in corner like they have in years past? And I think that's a worthwhile discussion, and the resources. So I would like to shift those resources to O-line and D-line now, and by extension edge and D-line. To me, I look at the same. It's the same bucket for me, but that's like number one with the that's number one clearly for me. And then 2 is O-line, and then 3 is corner. But to your point, that's why I'm very intrigued. If they can get Lamar extended, that's still a huge component to what they can do in free agency. Then I would try to go after a veteran rush player of some kind that would make it a lot easier going to the draft. And then you're like, okay, we're in pretty decent shape, and maybe we can do best player available at those.
Right.
Other
Yeah,
positions.
that's always the position that I would strive to get to if I were DeCosta, is to be ambivalent about as many positions as possible as to whether you absolutely need to have that player or not. And they've been pretty good in recent years doing that. The nice thing, but the one kind of dark cloud over the last couple of Ravens drafts have been the need to draft a left tackle. And that, and you know, when you have that need, it's a complete millstone around your draft strategies and whatnot. And they drafted Rosengarten at good value in round 2, and then they drafted Vincent, and it looks like to me they got good value in round 5. They signed Ronnie, and he made it through the year, which was good. Looks like he's a reasonable prospect to make it through a second year. Point being that they don't need an offensive tackle this year, which is a big freer of decision making in the early rounds.
I agree with that. Yeah, no, that's a good call. So now hopefully you have a little bit of a concentrated approach. Corner does muddy things up because it's really a matter of how they approach that and how they view Wiggins too, right? Do they view Wiggins as a number 1 corner capable to the point where they could maybe, they could bring back Awuzie as a number 2, or they could go, with a different player, but the cost value would be similar. That could be one of the things we don't know the answer to just yet, but like then you might be able to get away with and also how they view Tampa, but like where would they land with corner as a priority, right? Maybe you could get away with a 3rd round corner, but I think to your point, across the board they have a healthy amount of needs, but they're going to have to address a number of them in free agency to meet if they want to. If they're looking at their team as a purely we missed because of coaching only, I think that would be really wrong to evaluate, because they, to me, were exposed on talent stuff this year as well, especially with the injuries. Then when you lose your top player on offense and your top player on defense at junctures, and then the bottom falls out as badly as it did, that tells you that there's not as much depth of talent across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I think they, in both cases, without a healthy Lamar, they look like crap. And without Hamilton, whenever that was the case, they certainly weren't able to get anything done. So, they had problems on both sides. I am anticipating a bargain bin shopping for one of the needs at edge. I mean, you go into this, Van Noy, Jones, and Ojabo are all free agents. The Ravens aren't going to re-sign Ojabo, I don't believe, unless it's, I guess, a 1-year vet min deal. I don't see them re-signing Van Noy, although he probably goes into the bucket of lots of options. It's just he happens to be a little bit older than a lot of the 30 to 32-year-old guys. There just seems to be a lot of ability that DeCosta has been able to harvest out of that specific bin of talent, is go out and find a pass rusher who's most likely still have a little bit of juice in the tank.
What do you think about Khalil Mack? That's the name that's been thrown around, and natural production of.
Those are real dollars you're going to have to spend on Khalil Mack.
That's the difference. Yeah. I don't know. We're saying 12 million. You hope.
I'm literally looking at the guys who are like on a $2 million base with the possibility of making 4.5 if they meet certain goals. That's the bargain bin to me. Yeah. Or even vet min going up to 4 million kind of thing.
Yeah.
And once we start talking about anybody but that, then I mean the money goes up exponentially at the edge position. Draymond, it may not be that much of an advantage over a good bargain bin, certainly not over a good bargain bin play. They got, Jadeveon Clowney on that ridiculously good contract.
I can see that logic too, because again, if you're of the mind of, if we were, again, if Matabika gets back, that's a big if. You draft another player, premium player, in April, all of a sudden you're probably still staring at that group of players that are waiting. Like a Judon was out there last year. Zadarius Smith was out there. for a while. So then that plan that kind of starts to make more sense. But to your point, either way, they have to pick up one of these players because they just need the depth in numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think they're going to get it via exclusively the draft is the problem. I think it is possible they'll go for a marquee edge. If they did, I almost hope it's an older player like Mac, where the contract expectations should not be as high. I just don't know if that's going to be true. Like, is it going to be 3 years, $69 million to sign Khalil Mack at this point in his career, or can they have him for less?
I think that's a tough one because of the willingness that other teams would have that have the cap space to burn on Mac on a 1-year deal. That's where the Ravens can't compete. So that would be tough.
Mac will be 35 in 20 days. 35. I mean, I'm not signing a guy like that to a 3-year deal anyway. So, you know, I think I just based on his age alone, I know he's good last year. There's no two ways about that. I'm not really keen on buying high on a 35-year-old. And if you have to give him a multi-year deal, you got really high probability you end up with an old maid contract where it's either a 2 to make 1 or a 3 to make 2 deal that you're really signing with the guy because he either won't play out the contract for you at the rate you've got, or he isn't good enough to play out the contract. So when you have those two things, it's like there's a player option in both directions that I don't like.
Good points. At that point, to me, I'd rather go 29, 28-year-old, close to 30, and you get a player that maybe you're paying around the same or a little more, maybe a little bit more, but there's a long-term value and he can come in and you feel better about it for 3 seasons. That I can get behind, and then you come back with some of the players we talked about, and then you draft a player. So I think that could really be the mix. And they could go D tackle, they could go edge, either or. And I'd be good with that. But I just I would like to see them really soup up the talent in the pass rush department. That's a huge one for me. And I think for them to get to that next level in the postseason, the front 4 pass rush just has to have guys that can win without being scheme dependent, I should say.
Right. No, that's a very good point. They need to have more first pressures from the outside, and Clowney delivered those, as a in that role. But you look at it, the cupboard is very bare right now. Robinson and Green are the 2 building blocks for this team. They've got to figure out how to build the rest of the defense around those 2 guys. And Green is unproven, and Robinson is was overworked in this last season, so they're not going to want to use him as much. I think this is a team that's going to want to go to camp with at least probably 5 outside linebackers that they think have a good chance to make the team, and one of them might not, or one of them might get hurt, or one of them, they just don't carry 5.
Yeah, and so you're most likely drafting, at least one. And I don't know if that's the first 3 rounds or whatever. Like you said, they could be in different spots there depending on how the board falls and the needs they haven't addressed, and at least one bargain bin guy. And then you kind of then to me it depends on what they do if they go with a premium route. But yeah, they have a lot. It's a bit scary to think that they're right now what they're looking at with what is in that cupboard right now. And I think Travis Jones can be the player that helps to free up everyone else, and he can be that player that enabler, right? Like force multiplier, that expression. But he's not Justin Madubuike though, and I think that's when you get into a little bit of you're probably gonna, if Madubuike healthy, no doubt coming back. We're not in that world, but if that were the case and they had Jones locked up, all of a sudden you're feeling like, all right, you just got to hope Mike Green kind of develops. It's probably all they would need. Not too much more. and the bargain bin guy that you talked about is going to get 8 sacks just because their D tackle duo is one of the best in the league, if not the best. So it's a huge difference.
I don't want to belittle Madubuike at all, but I think, it's kind of like the Henry Jackson relationship, who benefited more from the other. There's no doubt in my mind that Madubuike benefited a lot more from Travis Jones than the other way around.
Sure. He gets to have he doesn't have to do that grunt work. It's a fair point. He is at his best when he can just line up across the guy in front of him and rush and use his burst, and he's a quick penetrator and all those things. And obviously, and in 2023, he benefited even more because he had lanes, free rushing opportunities, free rusher opportunities. So yeah, he's a guy that what I'll give him is he's really, when he's there, he closes pretty well. I don't know if you have the numbers for that, but he's just really good in that department from the eye test.
Yeah, I mean, he's a terrific finisher. We're talking about Madubuike, right? Yeah. Terrific finisher, no doubt about it. And the thing that hurt him in 24 was a lot of roughing the passer penalties. He had 4 roughing the passer penalties in one season, which I mean, I look at every one of those as basically negating a sack. That he not the sack on that play, but like another sack that he had otherwise. And so, it's a tough year. Anyway, Green being the only multi-year commitment currently has me a little bit scared, because it's a little bit like the tight end situation, that all the contracts came due at one time, and it's an expensive position to refill. So while the Ravens, it's always going to be something. You're always going to have some need on the team. But
sure.
But it was offensive tackle for a couple of years, and now it looks like it's edge and defensive line, and more holes to fill.
They do. I have optimism that they will. Well, first of all, I liked that DaCosta called it out at the press conference prominently. He said that was the first thing he brought up was pass rush, and he made no bones about it. And usually the pattern is that when they say it, they do it. They do target it. So I do expect it to happen, and it just comes down to, like you said, when you have the players that they have on the team, the quarterback that they have on the team, the money is tied up in a lot of places, so they're going to have to be creative with how they build this. But there is just no way that they could start the season without addressing it, and I think through both paths, free agency and draft. Now, whether it's the first pick and like spending a ton of money or not, right? Like there's different combinations they can run, but they do have to address it and make an effort. I think they have to. But the depth chart takes care of it on that front.
Yeah. All right, Dev, just great talking football with you. I appreciate you spending almost 2 hours here with me. I always know it's going to end up being like that with us, but I thought some really good discussion on this and at a depth that I think people will appreciate. Tell folks where they can talk football with you online.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It actually, to your point, covered a lot of bases. So it's a big topic, but always happy to talk to folks on Twitter at DevPanchois is my account, and also look out for my pieces on Russell Street Report, which really is dependent on topic and inspiration these days. But yeah, there's some stuff in my mind that you could potentially see being published in the near term.
Make sure you follow Dev on Twitter. Outstanding follow. There's always a lot of good discussion that involves him. He's a very worthwhile person to make sure you have. You can tag into a conversation as well.
Sure.
Thanks, folks out there, for all your loyalty listening to the show. And please, if you want to do something nice for the show, there I can suggest 2 things. Give us a 5-star 50-word review. Take you 5 minutes. Hopefully, it won't be that painful to do. And the other one is to use hashtag Film Study Mailbag, or use the comments on the YouTube videos. I'm trying to grow a little bit algorithmically after years of not really concerning myself at all with that. So if you comment on YouTube, that'll help the algorithm a little bit. We have a little discussion out there. Dev, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you, Ken.
And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study. Okay.